Welcome to Damascus. I'm Jafar Hasnan. It's been over 1 month since the fall of the Assad regime, and this city is filled with both hope and uncertainty. The biggest question on everyone's mind here is, what is next for Syria? The Syrian war did not only reshape the political dynamics of the country, but also the livelihood of millions of people. The fall of the Assad regime was a major turning point, but the story does not end here. The journey to recovery is long, and the people of Syria are the main part of that story. Today, we're not here to just report, but to listen to the plight of the people of Syria, and to understand what are their needs, what are their wants, and what are they hoping for the future of the country. And joining me on this journey is TRT World's very own Nizar Sadawi. He has been waiting with a TRT World microphone in his hands. So Nizar, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Welcome to Damascus.
Nizar has been in Syria for the past 2 weeks now. And of course, I understand you have many observations. So let's kick a start with that. Let's kick off with that. What is your main observation? What have you observed over the past 2 weeks here since you got here?
I have a lot of observations, but you know what stands out to me the most is the resilience Syrians are showing during these difficult times, because of course they're facing so many challenges, tremendous challenges in terms of economy, in terms of political stability, in terms of order in the street, because we have to understand that this new administration they have is still in the first phases of building trust with people. So that's the thing. But I do believe that when you talk about Syrians these days, you have to start with economy. The sanctions that have not been lifted until the moment, they're making their lives a nightmare.
That appears to be one of the main issues facing the country right now. And Nizar, one thing that really stands out for me is the fact that despite the circumstances, life here appears to be somewhat normal. I mean, I won't say everything is perfectly fine.
Of course.
But the country is coming out from 14 years rather, of war. And within 1 month or so, this is the kind of setup the country has right now. So that's remarkable, is it not?
This is actually one of the most resilient and commercial neighborhoods in Damascus. In the old Damascus, they call it Asham al-Adima, which translates into the old Damascus. It's called Bab Touma. It's mostly Christian community. That's when it comes to the shop owners, but not when it comes to people, because it is, again, a very diverse community. When it comes to Syrian people, they have it all. They have Kurds, they have Christians, they have some Jewish people, they have Turkmen, they have everything. But of course, it is, as a population, it is predominantly an Arab Sunni community. But again, this area can actually say a lot. We've always been hearing about, the jasmine of Sham, the jasmine of Damascus.
So this is the jasmine.
Yes, this is it. This is where the jasmine mingles with the dust of history.
But here's the thing, because I think this is very important for our audience to know as well. Not every street in Damascus is like this. There are these streets which are completely destroyed, completely empty. This is an exclusive street, would you say? Would you say this is an isolated street, or there are many like this?
No, there are many streets like this in Damascus. But when you go to the countryside of Damascus, when you go to Aleppo, when you go to northern parts of Syria, when you go to Douma and many other places, I think it's going to be quite different. You will have a different sense of how people are coping with this. Even the scenery is quite different. I mean, I've been in war zones before, and this is in fact one of the most war-torn countries I've ever seen.
Right.
In Syria, here.
Okay, this is what I said in the introduction. We are here not just to report, but to listen to the Syrian people. Because I think in order to understand the crises this country is facing, we have to amplify the voice of the Syrian people. So there are many hawkers here, many vendors, many shops, coffee shops. So what we'll try to do is try to speak to them and get their observation on what's been going on in the country right now.
كيف شايفها؟ كيف الوضع؟
الحمد لله
تمام؟ أعطيني هيك نظرة عامة عن الوضع، كيف شايف البلد بهاي المنطقة؟ أنت شو بتبيع؟
ببيع مواد غذائية، بسكوت، حليب نسلي، حليب. الوضع الحمد لله الأمور أحسن بأحسن إن شاء الله، وكل ما لقدام أحسن صرنا نتنفس، ناخذ راحتنا، نطلع نفوت. أحسن من قبل بكتير.
So here's the thing. The moment he started talking about, what he sells and things like that, he immediately said, now we can breathe. It's better than...
The country is living basically a sigh of
he
relief.
immediately referred to life under the Assad regime, indirectly. So that's the thing. كحدا ببيع هون بالشارع، شو تغير عليك؟ من شهر خلينا نحكي وجاي.
يعني اول كانوا يعني ممنوع توقف، ما في مجال. هلا عم ناخذ راحتنا يعني بحيث انه يعني ما نضايق حدا، ما نجهز حدا، ما تعرضنا اي حدا يعني. امور احسن بكتير جيدة. وكان اول شيء ممنوع توقفهم، ما في ياخذونا معروف يعني على السجن، محاسبة، مساءلة قانونية على اشياء فاضية يعني. مثل انا واحد مبسط، انا شو الغلط اللي مرتكبه؟ ما هذاك الغلط الكبير يعني.
شو تكون عقوبته؟
والله هلا يعني السجن، غرامة مالية، مصادرة البضاعة اللي عم يشتغل فيها.
Well, I think we can wish him all the very best, and I hope your business thrives. Thank you very much once again. Shukran. Thank you. Thank you. So, of course, this is just one of hundreds of thousands of vendors in Syria. Let's try to see if we can speak to some others.
How about
I see
that guy?
this tea seller over there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try if we can speak to him. Assalamu alaikum.
عليكم السلام.
So,
جعفر، كيف شايفها؟ كيف الوضع؟
الحمد لله ممتاز.
من أي ناحية ممتاز؟
من كل شيء.
هلا أنت كنت شو بتشتغل زمان؟
أنا كنت أشتغل بالبلاط.
بالبلاط؟
إيه.
أوكي.
معلم بلاط.
وهلا؟
هلا عم أشتغل على البسطة. شاي مع شاي وقهوة.
يعني شايف الوضع مثالي؟
إيه والله الحمد لله.
ما في ولا غلطة، كله تمام.
ممتاز الحمد لله.
It's excellent. He's saying it's excellent.
okay, how is he doing business-wise? Is he able to make ends meet?
إيه اختلف كثير الوضع.
بس لسه الغلا موجود، الوضع الاقتصادي لساته صعب
لا
شوي.
عم ينزل بشكل يعني، بس مو بيوم وليلة يعني بده ينزل فرد مرة.
فاهم انت هالشيء؟
أكيد. يعني في وضوء يعني واضح إنه نزل. كان كيلو السكر وصل لل 50,000 اليوم حقه 8,000.
Okay, I mean not ideal yet, but of course things are moving towards a positive direction. And I think this is one thing that I can also corroborate. I came to Syria about 3 weeks ago. At the time, I exchanged $100, and in return, I got 1.4 million Syrian pounds. And I did exactly that again yesterday, and I got 1.1 million Syrian pounds. So the Syrian currency appears to be gaining some momentum here.
And it's not just about the currency, Jafar. See, even the actual value of the Syrian pound has slightly improved. I wouldn't say it's perfect now. Of course, it's far from ideal. But again, there is significant improvement.
It is a long journey.
Yes, in terms of the prices. Look at this guy. 50,000 pounds. Now it's 8 for 1 kilo of sugar.
What's the price of one cup of tea?
قد ايه كاسة الشاي عندك؟
3,000.
3,000.
3,000.
3,000.
And how much does he make per month?
قد ايه بتعمل بالشهر؟ معلش على السؤال.
يعني هيك أنا تقريبا بعمل حوالي 2,000,000 ليرة سوري.
2 million pounds.
2 million Syrian pounds. So that would mean about $150.
Actually, I think it's 160, 170.
Okay, so he's doing relatively better than most of the people of the society because, for example, I spoke to the receptionist of our hotel and he was telling me he makes about $30 a month. But again, we are hearing reports that start February, there will be a 400% increase in salaries, public sector salaries in Syria.
Do we get some tea?
Absolutely, let's go for it, yeah.
معلش تعطينا كاستين شاي عمي؟
على راسي.
على راسي. يسعدك.
So, you know, it's just a different feeling to be out on the streets of Damascus because it's one thing to read about what's going on in the country and it's another thing to be able to speak to the people because when you speak to them, you basically understand the dynamics of the society and the challenges facing them. So, Nizar, what have we done up until now? We have spoken to 2 people and these 2 folks have given us a positive picture of the country. The vendor before this gentleman was happy about how things have changed.
He's not in prison for selling things in the street.
Absolutely. And this gentleman here, he has basically said things are excellent. In fact, when we asked him whether or not he would want things to be better, he said no.
Definitely making more than the receptionist at the hotel, for example.
Yes. So yeah, let's grab our tea.
قد ايه
It's about 5 p.m. Okay, the
Yes.
sun is about to set. I understand this neighborhood is famous for getting crowded during nighttime, but even right now I do see a lot of people. But I have to mention
Yes.
one thing, Nazar. Most of the shops here, not most, but some of them are closed. For example, if you see right over there, shops are closed. Now there could be multiple reasons for that. There could be lack of business. These people don't know what does the future hold for the country, so they're not sure whether or not they should be opening their shops.
I know what you have on mind, and I actually asked people about this because this is supposedly one of the one of the busiest areas in the old Damascus. And they told me that many of the shop owners here decided to leave. They chose to leave because of the conflict, of course, because of the internal conflict.
Some are here.
But some are here. And others have actually left because of the bad economy.
Let's try to speak
They're
to
not
this
making enough money
pizza shop. Am I right? Is it a pizza shop?
It's a pizza pastry.
It's a pastry, okay.
This is actually something very famous here.
Salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum.
Jafar.
كيف الحال؟
Salam
مساء
alaikum.
الخير.
Okay, so he's making bread right now. And
that's an old oven.
old
It's a
oven.
very old oven. ليه كثير محلات هون سكرت؟
بس في عالم سافرت، في عالم صارت انه خافت من القصص، في غلا صار لانه صار خربطوا بالاسعار، عشان هيك هالقصص هي بس يعني مو اكثر لا أقل.
وانتم كم صار لكم فاتحين؟
صرنا نحن عمر، صرنا شي 30 سنة تقريبا.
شو وجهة نظرك بالإدارة الموجودة حاليا؟ هل أنت متفائل؟ متوقع الأمور تكون
كان كل شيء
أفضل؟
خير،
نفس الشيء؟
حتى نفسيتنا ارتاحت بكل شيء، بالوضع بالاسعار بكل شيء، حتى يعني بتمشي بالشارع مرتاح، نفسيتك مرتاحة.
تحكي براحتك؟
اي بكل شيء. اول لا، ولا 1% كنا مرتاحين.
من أي ناحية كمان؟
من كل شيء. ما فيك تحكي أي حرف الواحد ما بتقدر تحكي.
He's actually seeing signs
That things are improving.
that things are improving. That's why he says he's very much hopeful. He says now we can talk. Before that, we couldn't talk. In terms of economy, things are also improving. This is what he's
So
saying.
3 elements up until now.
Economy,
Economy. That person told us he could have gotten arrested for being on the streets. Now
Yes.
he's free to do his business.
okay, the value
People
of
are
the
able to
pound
talk.
from 50,000 to 8,000.
Okay.
And now this guy is talking about technically freedom of expression.
Freedom of
Because
expression.
that's important. I couldn't help but notice that most Syrians here use the same phrase. Now we can breathe. This is
Yeah.
the translation. We can breathe. I mean, I'm sure it must have been really terrible. هلا لسه في عقوبات اقتصادية، لسه الوضع الاقتصادي أكيد تحسن عن أول بس مش تمام. حد زيك مثلا عندك القدرة على انك تغطي تكاليف المعيشة، كم تعمل بالشهر مثلا؟
هلا بالشارع مثلا يوميتي انا باخذ يوميتي انا مثلا 80,000.
اوكي
80,000 يا دوب نصها مثلا اذا الواحد بدخن او مواصلات، نصها راحت مواصلات بس ودخان. يعني ما عم نحكي شيء، لا اكلنا لا شربنا لا عملنا شيء. بس الحمد لله الاسعار كلها يعني عم ترخص والاحسن ان شاء الله.
انه بتضل احسن من اول.
ايه بكتير. اول كنا يعني حتى مثلا بدك تشتري الخضره بدك تعمل حسابها. هي ابسط المثالات يعني مثلا. فالحمد لله كل شيء للاحسن الحمد لله.
Thank you very much, and we
شكراً.
apologize if we're disturbing your
شكراً.
regular
شكراً.
operations.
أسفين
Thank you very
عبد
much. Thank you.
على راسي.
Thank you. Okay. So Nizar, up until now, what I have noticed, people in this neighborhood, because I cannot talk about other neighborhoods, we have only been here right now, they are painting a positive picture of the country. We have spoken to 3 people up until now, and all of them have painted a positive picture. They're happy. Even about economy, they're happy. They're saying that things are improving. I think one thing that I would agree with you on is there is unity among a significant majority of the
Yes,
country
that is
about
true.
the fall of the Assad regime.
This
I have
is
seen it.
This is the thing that they have in common. They all agree, all of them,
And
but
I
the
mean,
majority.
Ubaida Hito, our own correspondent, he went to Latakia. That's
Yes.
where Assad hails from. And he made a report on the Alawite community there.
Yes.
Even the Alawites
Exactly.
were not happy with
this is what they all agree
Bashar
on.
al-Assad, because-
They needed to get
Right.
rid of al-Assad and his
the
regime.
conception in the international community was Assad enjoys a lot of support from the Alawite community, but of course when you come here and talk to the people, you get a different picture. And the problem before the fall of the Assad regime was international media. We were not able to come here.
Exactly.
Right?
Look,
Now that we are able to get here, we are able to inform the international community,
if-
our audience,
I'm
about the
sure-
reality
I'm
of the
sure-
country.
I'm sure you must have noticed this. if you and I were walking here 2 months ago, let's say, people wouldn't have dared to speak to us. But now everyone's greeting
Yep.
us with a smile. They're able to talk because again, they can breathe. And by breathe, they mean talk about politics, economy, whatever comes to their mind.
Nizar, we have heard from the people. You and I have many observations about Syria. What we're going to do now is sit down with a panel of experts
Okay?
and discuss how should one navigate through the challenges Syria is facing right now, and what would it take for the international community to give recognition to the current administration, and most importantly, where does Syria stand in international politics right now? So, who do we have here? To my left, I have Yasser Tabara, co-founder of the Syrian Forum and lawyer. Thanks very much for taking the time out. Then I have Bajet Hajar, executive director of LACU. He's also a member of the Syrian Civil Society. Then our very own Nizar Sadawi, TRT World's correspondent. And last but not the least, Lema Al-Jamal. She's a lawyer and activist. Once again, thanks very much for taking the time out for us. Of course, what we're going to be discussing is something that is of paramount importance. We are going to be analyzing the voices of Syrian people, the people who have endured more than a decade of war. Lema, I want to begin with you. People here, a significant majority, is happy about the change in the regime, the fall of the Assad regime. But at the same time, there's this cautious optimism. I won't call it, they're very optimistic about the future right now, because even they don't know what awaits them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree that we cannot be optimistic to the maximum, but we have to be cautious about everything that we are working on. Syrian people are starting from the zero, from the scratch now, because of all what the crisis happened did them. So they don't have access for the basic services. The unstable economy here in Syria. The other thing, the infrastructure is devastated. So a Syrian can make like $30 in a day, yeah, on average. So that's a lot of things to think about. But the stability of the Syrians and the security of Syria, the Syrians, is something that they care about. Aligning with the basic services they need to make their living. So yeah, I think that they are all cautious, but they are happy. I know that there is a balance that we need to go on to just protect
What they have right now?
yeah,
Okay.
what happened.
Okay. Yasser, I want to come to you, and I want to pick up on one thing that you mentioned, that the average salary, I mean, there's this one estimate that we are getting a lot. In fact, this is something that I've realized after speaking to the receptionist of the hotel that I'm living in right now. He told me he makes $30 a month. And according to estimates, research, more than 13 million people in the country, they lack some of the most basic necessities of life. 90% of the population of the country is facing poverty. Now, there's this talk about political stability, economic stability, social contract, but correct me if I'm wrong, economic stability cannot happen until and unless there is political stability in the country.
Well, I mean, let's take a step back in answering the question that you asked. In order for you to be optimistic or cautious or whatever, you have to assess where we're starting from. And this is something that Lema alluded to. We're really starting from a place that is of great desperation. If you talk to a lot of Syrians, they'll tell you it is very difficult to imagine a situation worse than what they were under prior to December 8th. Because Syria really includes, it's beyond the urban centers as well. So a lot of Syria has been suffering from a lot of, instability and violence and all sorts of issues over the past 14 years. And so to a lot of Syrians, this is a huge step in the right direction. Now, going back to the economic stability question, and I think it's a comprehensive package. Obviously, in order for you to have real economic stability and revitalization, if you will, of the economic sector, there has to be a number of serious political steps taken in order for us to achieve a semblance of a healthy political transition. But again, we've seen these immediate signs almost of quick economic recovery. The U.S. dollar is at its lowest rates in years, which has already reflected on basic
It
services.
happened very quickly, did it not?
Yeah, it actually, I think a day before December 8th, I've heard that the dollar went up all the way to like 20,000 Syrian liras for
And now
$1.
it's somewhere around 11,000 at the time we were filming.
Exactly. And so I think that has been reflected in terms of very basic services, very basic elements that's the average Syrian citizen is feeling tangibly. And so I think that those are good economic indicators in terms of what could potentially happen. There has been an incredible amount of overflow of Syrian expatriates that have been waiting for this moment in order for them to come to Syria and spend their dollars and to inject their wealth and their knowledge and their expertise into a country that they've been pretty much kept away from for decades for some of them. And so we're talking about a huge potential that could be unleashed should there be the right political and economic conditions. And I think it seems that there is
The right structure is there?
well, I mean, the intentions are there. The international community, especially the European Union, is very much interested in the economics and political stability of this country. The same thing for the region, the Gulf countries and others. And so there seems to be a number of or a threshold of international consensus on stabilizing Syria, politically, then economically, and I think that will reflect positively on the entire region and the entire world after that.
Ajad, let me come to you. Of course, it's one thing for the international community to demand something of the new Syrian administration, and I understand diplomatic engagements are underway right now, but the thing which is of paramount importance is, what do the Syrian people want? And my understanding is, what they have in their mind is whether or not they're able to buy a car, whether or not they're able to buy a house, whether or not they're able to get 3 meals a day, whether or not they have jobs, whether or not they're able to send their kids to schools. So, in your view, what do you think the new administration needs to do at this point so all these demands, these wants are realized?
Thank you, Jafar, for having us. I mean, and I'm really happy to be with Lama and Yasser. And so basically the demands of the Syrian people at the very early days of the Syrian revolution are still the same. So yes, beside the basic needs for any person, housing, food, and basic needs, the needs of freedom of speech, of freedom of participation. So I think that the new administration has to be more inclusive, to talk to Syrians in equal basis, like those who resists in regime-held areas for a long time deserve to have the rights to raise their priorities, their needs. The same as well for those who were the returnees, those who were not able, like us, to come to Damascus for a decade or more. They need to take part, to participate in designing the future of Syria, the political atmosphere, the economic type. So I'm keen to reach the day that I have my votes in choosing the best economic model that suits Syrian anyway. So it is the responsibility of the new administration beside the Syrian people in different categories. Syrian diaspora are responsible for the economic rebuilding and economic recovery. Syrian civil society has a huge role as well to start and launch this dialogue. The dialogue between Syrians is not an event. It's not the national dialogue that everybody is talking about. It's a continuous process that starts from breaking the ice between different communities. I mean, the huge polarization that used to be between the different controlled areas by the de facto authorities between northwest, northeast, and regime-held areas had a pre-perception of communities about those who were in Damascus or in regime-held areas, or those who are coming from opposition-held areas.
Okay. Fascinating insights. Nizar, I want to put what we have discussed up until now to you. So we have spoken about political stability, economic stability, and then there's this talk about freedom, uniting the country. See, here's the thing. Social contract is very important. Syria is a country with many different ethnicities, right? You have the Kurds, you have the Arabs, you have the Shia Muslim, the Sunni Muslims, the Alawites, then you have the Christian community. Right now we are in a predominantly Christian neighborhood. Do you think Syria has a social contract, or would you say that the administration needs to do something about achieving that?
Look, I think there are good promises that Syrians are getting from the new administration, and I do believe that they have this cautious optimism simply for the main reason that Assad is gone. This is one thing that every Syrian I have met during the past 2 weeks or so agrees on. They think that the idea that Assad is no longer here is in itself a good sign. And that's one thing. But on the other, building trust with the Syrian people here, despite their affiliations, despite which minority group they come from, this is something crucial. And I think the new administration is facing lots of challenges in this regard. They're trying. This is what I've seen. This is what I've been hearing from people, that the administration is definitely trying. They're talking to people, to different minorities. They're giving promises that nothing will change if it's good, and if it was bad, things will become good. But again, they do realize that they need time. Syrians themselves understand, and this is something very important and very delicate, because I was under the assumption that people won't get it, that whatever, no matter how this new administration tries, it's not going to make their dreams come true in a matter of months or weeks. But I realized that people actually understand.
Okay.
People understand that this requires time and effort.
And I agree that the very basis of a new social contract is actually the fall of this regime that has been sitting on everybody's chest for over decades.
They were using people against each other. This is what Syrians are telling us.
And I think the whole concept of protecting minorities and the whole impression about minority rights and all these things, what the social contract that has been negotiated, if you can call it such, with the previous regime, whether it's the Assad dynasty, the father, and the Ba'ath before, and then now, it's basically, I give you some of your personal freedoms in exchange for your political rights. It's completely devoid of any aspect of meaningful political participation. And
I give you the opportunity to make more money than other businessmen, for example.
This is what I experienced as well after speaking to people. For example, Nizar, you and I spoke to this jewelry shop owner, right? And we literally asked this question: are you satisfied? Are you hopeful that things are going to move forward in a positive direction?
Skeptical she was?
If things are going to move in a positive direction with this new administration. And her answer was no. It was a resounding no. Not because she has problems with the new administration. She said, based on my past experience with the Assad regime, the Assad dynasty, as we can call it, for the past 50 years, they have done nothing for us. So based on that experience, she says, I don't have hope for the future. What if the new administration turns out to be like them?
That's why it's critical to build trust. Trust needs to be built between the administration and the people, because remember what she said. We asked her directly, has anyone come to you with a threat or anything bad? And she said, no, not officially. But the thing is, based on her experiences under al-Assad, it's going to take some time for her to trust
but see,
the promises of the new administration.
Ashara said something that is very poignant. And look, people who know my personal political history and participation would say that I'm not a fan of any particular person. Let's just put it that way. But one of the things that struck me as extremely poignant, said by Shara, and this is something I haven't thought about before. In one of his latest interviews, he said something to the effect that, look, if I am going to come now and mess with some of the things that I promised these communities, I will lose my credibility.
Yes.
And I think I think that shows that it doesn't matter what your perspective or your starting point is, whether it's pragmatic or it's altruistic or whatever your intentions are. You know, if you're looking for legitimacy, you really need to tackle this particular question of trust, as you said, of building credibility, maintaining that credibility, negotiating a new social contract on the correct basis. I know that you're very skeptical about these things.
On the other hand, I think we need to promise citizenship for everybody. An active citizenship will be a very good framework for people to be a part of this community without just looking about where are you coming from or what is your ethnic or anything. So this social contract has to be built on citizenship. If you are a good citizen, if you are doing your duties, if you are having your rights, that's all what we need from you to be a good citizen here in Syria.
Citizenship
Yeah.
is the right word, more effective than protecting minorities.
Yeah.
Because I know that the new administration are very sensitive when it comes to minorities, protecting minorities, when it comes from the West. Basically, and I heard it from many officials that they were saying that we've been blackmailed by the West with protecting minorities and women participation. But when the people were saying that we want women participation, when they objected on the official statement by some officials, they stepped back, they listened. Better than, and this is what we are telling the donors and the international community. Please support the Syrians' demands, not putting these requests or conditions for political negotiation with the new administration. So, and trust building is not only between the administration and the people, it's
between the people themselves.
Yeah. So I realized when we arrived from Northwest, when we arrived from Idlib, from Azaz, from areas that had a space of freedom before, and
what
they
were
were
people's
with the feeling,
stances?
we had the feeling of victory, while the people were like,
they had no, I mean, cautious optimism.
And
I think
the first question that we were asked, especially in Qasa and these neighborhoods, that are we going to change our lifestyle? Are we going to change our outfit?
To that point, if I may.
Selling alcohol? But then, after 10 days, they started to ask, are we going to be Ra'aya or Mu'atanin, citizenship or follow?
Who asked that?
So
the normal people in the streets that we met.
Just locals.
And then what could be the next constitution look like? So these questions that we've had the luxury to discuss a long time for 10 years in Afrin, Azaz, Idlib, and in Istanbul and Gaziantep. It was like the red lines.
I think one thing that we need to discuss here is whether or not the new administration in Syria has done enough to disassociate themselves from their past, because these concerns that he just mentioned, whether or not there will be alcohol, whether or not
as long as it is not regulated, you cannot say that they are dissociated from their past. I know that they are taking actions toward that. I know that they are trying their best to just make all the communities comfort with themselves. That nothing gonna happen, nothing gonna change. You can stay. You can, as a lawyer, we heard a lot of blah 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 about taking women out of the lawyer profession, out of the justice profession. So they said no. There will be no such a thing. You will keep participating as a lawyer, as a judge, and you will be a part of this community, working community. So they are taking good steps toward promising these things, but I think they need to talk more to these people. They need to hear us more. They need to hear what they want. Really, I don't want to be someone who stays at home and just get a paycheck. I want to be a part of this active going around, rebuilding the country.
Yes, let me say two very important, like rule of law plus dialogue.
Yeah, thank
because,
you.
I mean, the recent conflict or clash that happened 2 days ago in Al-Qassa, when one guy or group of guys were trying to do da'wah, like to ask people to be on Sharia. This is something that when you see in Europe, you don't feel that, you know, everybody is free to call for whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But here was the sensitivity after long decades of dictatorship and restrictions on speech. So suddenly seeing people like that are a bit different than your beliefs, this would be sensitive and could be so. Opening this dialogue is really important to start the regulation.
I'll tell you what happened as an outsider, as someone who was following what was happening in Syria while I was not in the country, right? After the fall of the Assad regime, there was this conception in the international community, okay, now the country is going to move towards, I hate that word, so-called Sharia law. I don't know, there's no such thing called Sharia law in Islam to start off with. But anyway, that's what the conception was in the international community, especially in the West. It's going to turn into a Sharia law society. Of course, that has not happened. The new administration has said on multiple occasions, everyone is free to do what they want to do. They are giving them assurances. But the question here is, Yasser, are they doing enough?
See, I think, again, taking a few steps back and delving into this whole concept of a meaningful and sustainable social contract. The approach really has to be flipped from I am the person in power and I'm bestowing upon you your rights and that is sort of like a one-way street versus I derive my legitimacy from your ability to vote for me, to put me in, to get me out of power. And I think that sort of paradigm shift really needs to happen. Right now, we're at the nascent stages of reshaping the relationship between the Syrian state and the Syrian people. And I think that is an extremely crucial period in our history. The problem is, all of these questions are being overshadowed by two very important issues: security and economic recovery. Till this moment, the new administration cannot claim that it has fully secured the entire territory of Syria.
Imposing order, you mean?
Exactly. And so, I mean, we still have issues in Northeast, we still have issues on the coast, in Sweda, Homs, internal issues there, and the Israelis encouraging into the
since we're at it, let me ask you this one question, and it's, I think, very important for our international audience. When I was coming to Syria, I was asked by many people, some of my friends from the West, is it safe? Is it safe to go there? Do you feel safe in Damascus? Of course, my answer was a resounding yes. I do feel safe in Damascus. As Syrians, what would you like to tell the international community about security and safety in Damascus?
So yesterday I drove from Sarmada, which is in Idlib, all the way on near Turkish border, all the way to Damascus. I got to Damascus around maybe 10 o'clock at night. And I really couldn't expect a smoother, ride trip. I honestly felt that I'm in a very safe environment, and I'm someone who's been exposed to other styles of living, and I perhaps have high sensitivity towards. But perhaps you should ask the women on the panel whether
absolutely.
she feels safe.
I think I feel safe going around. I always used to have some conscious about going back late home because I live in the suburb. Yesterday I went home 11:30 in the p.m. and it was so safe to go there and all by myself. I think the security is good here in Syria. In Damascus, I cannot talk about the whole Syria. I can say that we are safe to go around and go to our offices, go to work, and just buy things around, go to the markets. Everything is good, and I think people are having this quiet environment, and they are enjoying the safety because. I don't know, it's something emotional. We felt better when the regime fell.
And
Yeah, no problem, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is that security, for the first time, Syrian people reclaim the ownership of the state. So the early hours after the escape of Assad, people formed local committees. Nobody told them how
that's
to
what
form these
I was
local
going to talk
committees.
about.
They were responsible for state institutions, for their neighborhood, for the because of the mess that happened in the first few hours. So these local dynamics that created, because the people felt,
Responsible,
this is
yeah.
our state again. The youth
It's
volunteers,
their job, their duty
exactly,
to protect
they
their own
started to
country.
clean the streets for the first time. The same people that used to throw garbage from their from
they
the window of
cleaned
the car.
the whole- yeah.
Now they are collecting the garbage. They are helping the new administration.
Empowering the local community
Empower-
is again
Exactly.
something very important.
They are organizing the traffic. If you see, there are volunteers
I
all
noticed that,
around. Yeah.
I want to get your take on security, Nizar, because I mean, you're from Gaza. So you would know about danger better than anyone here.
Yeah.
Look, I can definitely say that there's a great sense of security when it comes to Damascus, Sham as we call it. For me especially, because yes, I'm a Tier 2 world correspondent, but I do speak the language, I speak Arabic. So when people here come to me and realize that I'm Palestinian originally, which is something very sweet here because they love Palestinians. So I can definitely say that I feel safe, 100%. But I couldn't help but notice that there are certain areas where more order needs to be imposed. Maybe not in Damascus, but some parts of the countryside, and of course in other cities. This is something that our guests here had spoken of. So it just raises one question, something that you and I were discussing earlier today. Which do Syrians believe is more important at this point? Imposing order, security everywhere, or economic stability?
Why do we have
why
the
does
door?
why does it have to be a dichotomy though? I mean, that's the question, right? We've always had this question. I mean, and the dichotomy usually
You want to
is-
do both.
What,
I get that.
The
I get
dichotomy
that.
usually is either security or freedom. That's usually the
Yes.
dichotomy.
I think this is more on the sustainability of this security. So on a daily basis, yes, we feel secure, but on a long term, are you moving back to Syria?
Fascinating insights. It's been a wonderful discussion. Of course, the problems facing Syria are so many that we need days of discussions, perhaps months of discussion. But I'm glad that we were able to discuss some of the most important topics in this time. And to those wondering what we are drinking, it's not green tea, it's a tea local to Damascus.
Yeah, it's like a mix of herbs called zuhurat.
So we could call it a herbal tea, Damascus herbal tea, or Syrian herbal tea.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Delicious stuff, huh?
It is, yeah. I mean, I'm almost done.
Yeah.
So, thanks very much for watching. Of course, one thing is clear that Damascus is a city of contrast. There is both hope and uncertainty. While the challenges facing Syria are monumental, so is the hope. And I think we can say that if there's one thing that can rescue the Syrian society, it's the Syrian people themselves. It's their resilience. I'm Jafar Hassan. Goodbye for now.